Hi, my name is Naomi Carter. I was 35 years old, and in less than an hour, I was about to become a stranger to the life I had protected for 10 years. Across the aisle, Ethan didn't acknowledge me once. He looked composed, polished, untouched by emotion. His expensive suit fit perfectly, like this moment had been tailored for him. To him, this wasn't a divorce, it was a transaction. The judge adjusted his glasses. After reviewing the preliminary evidence, a small voice interrupted him. "Your Honor, please." The entire room turned. Near the back row stood my daughter Leela, 10 years old, school backpack still hanging off one shoulder. Her hands trembled, but her feet stayed planted. My heart slammed against my ribs. "Leela?" My voice came out barely louder than a breath. "Why are you here?" Ethan reacted instantly. His chair screeched as he stood. "What are you doing? You were told to stay at school." Leela didn't answer him. She stepped forward, holding something tightly in both hands. A phone. Old, cracked, familiar. The phone I had searched for months ago before assuming it was gone forever. "I have something you need to see," she said, her eyes lifted to the judge. "Something my mom was never supposed to find." The judge studied her carefully, then glanced at Ethan, whose jaw had tightened. "Proceed," the judge said. "That's not appropriate," Ethan started. "Sit down," the judge said sharply. My pulse roared in my ears. What could my daughter possibly know? What truth had she been carrying alone? Before the phone connected to the screen, my thoughts pulled me backward to the years before everything cracked. I used to wake up every morning at 5, not because I had to, but because I thought it proved something. Ethan slept while I moved quietly through the house, preparing his breakfast exactly the way he liked it. His clothes were pressed, his briefcase waited by the door. I believed love meant being useful. By sunrise, I woke Leela. I braided her hair, packed her lunch, made her laugh. Those moments were the only time I felt visible. Ethan came downstairs without a word. A sip of coffee, a kiss for Leela. Nothing for me. I told myself not to take it personally. Powerful men carried heavy burdens. At least that's what I was taught. When Leela was born, Ethan convinced me to quit my job. He said, "Focus on her. I'll handle everything." So I let go of my career, my income, my backup plan. Years passed. Ethan changed. Longer hours, passwords on everything, calls whispered behind closed doors, a scent on his clothes I didn't recognize. When I asked, he smiled patiently like I was a child. "You're imagining things, Naomi." So I swallowed my doubts. What I didn't realize was this: my daughter never did. The envelope arrived on an ordinary afternoon. A courier, a signature, a manila folder heavy with lies. Divorce, custody, allegations. They called me unstable, neglectful, unfit. Ethan wanted full custody, the house, everything. Because I never contributed financially. When he came home that night, he didn't argue. He smiled. "You should have planned better." That was the night I understood this wasn't about leaving me. It was about erasing me. And while I was trying to survive the shock, my daughter was quietly gathering proof. Now, as the courtroom screen began to light up, I realized the truth had arrived before I was ready. The courtroom screen flickered once, then went dark. Ethan exhaled sharply, like someone bracing for impact. Lila stood frozen near the aisle, the phone clutched to her chest. For a moment, she looked smaller than she ever had, just a child surrounded by adults who had underestimated her. "Sweetheart," Ethan said, softening his tone instantly. "Come here, you're confused. Let the adults handle this." I had heard that voice before. It was the voice he used when he wanted control disguised as concern. Lila didn't move. Instead, she looked at me, not scared, not uncertain, apologetic. "I didn't want to do this," she said quietly, "but he said if I told anyone, you'd lose me forever." My breath caught. "What?" I whispered. The judge leaned forward. "Young lady, who said that?" "My dad." Ethan laughed once, too quickly. "This is ridiculous. Children misunderstand things all the time." Lila's hands tightened around the phone. "No," she said. "I understood this." She walked to the clerk's desk and carefully placed the phone down, like it might explode if dropped. "This phone records automatically," she continued. "It was on when Dad forgot it in the car." Ethan took a step forward. "Your Honor, I object." "Sit down," the judge repeated, louder this time. The clerk connected the phone. The screen lit up, and suddenly, Ethan's voice filled the room. At first, it sounded harmless, muffled background noise, the hum of traffic. Then Ethan laughed. Not the polite laugh he used in public, the real one. "She's got nothing," his voice said clearly. "No job, no income, no leverage." My stomach twisted. Another voice responded, female, calm, calculating. "And the kid?" Ethan didn't hesitate. "I'll get full custody. I've already planted the groundwork. Judges love a stable provider." The courtroom went completely silent. My hands began to shake. "You're sure she won't fight back?" the woman asked. Ethan scoffed. "Fight with what? She trusted me. That was her mistake." A pause. Then his next words sliced deeper than anything before. "If she resists, I'll make sure she never sees Lila again." I felt like the floor had vanished beneath me. Gasps rippled through the room. The judge raised a hand. "Pause the recording." Ethan was on his feet now. "This is manipulated, taken out of context." Lila turned toward him. "You told me not to worry. You said Mom wouldn't believe you anyway." His face went pale. The judge turned to me. "Mrs. Carter, were you aware of any of this?" I could barely speak. "No," I said honestly. "I didn't even know that phone still existed." Lila swallowed hard. "I found it under the seat months ago. I didn't know what to do. I was scared." I looked at my daughter, really looked at her, at the weight she'd been carrying alone. And then I heard him talking again, about court, about moms like you always lose. Tears burned my eyes. The judge removed his glasses and rubbed his temples. This court takes recordings like this seriously, especially when they involve coercion and custody manipulation. Ethan's lawyer leaned over, whispering frantically. Ethan didn't whisper. He stared straight at me. And for the first time in years, there was no mask, just rage. That night, as court adjourned temporarily, Ethan passed me in the hallway. "You think this changes anything?" he hissed. "You still have nothing." I didn't respond, because for the first time in a decade, he was wrong, and Lila knew it too. As we walked out together, she slipped her hand into mine, and I realized something, terrifying and hopeful at the same time. This wasn't just a custody battle anymore. It was a reckoning. Court didn't resume for another week, but Ethan didn't wait that long. The shift happened the moment we stepped outside the courthouse. I felt it in the way his eyes followed us, no longer confident, no longer amused, calculated. That night, my phone wouldn't stop buzzing. Unknown numbers, silent calls, messages with no text, just missed calls stacked on top of each other. By morning, my attorney had left 3 voicemails. "Naomi, Ethan has filed an emergency motion." Emergency. The word alone made my chest tighten. He was claiming I had manipulated Lila, that I had coached her to steal recordings, that I was emotionally pressuring my own child. The same man who threatened to erase me was now painting himself as the protector. At school, teachers suddenly watched me closely. One asked Lila, gently but clearly, if she felt safe at home. Another suggested counseling just in case. I smiled. I nodded. Inside, I was screaming. Ethan had always been good at this. He never attacked directly. He made others do it for him. 3 days later, I found the locks changed. My key didn't work. Lila stood behind me on the porch, her fingers gripping my jacket. A security guard stepped forward. "Ma'am, Mr. Carter requested restricted access until further notice." Restricted? From my own home? I called Ethan. He answered on the first ring. "You're not welcome there right now," he said calmly. "It's for Lila's stability." "You can't do this," I said. "I already did." That night, we slept on my sister's couch. Lila stared at the ceiling. "I'm sorry," she whispered. "I made him angry." I pulled her into my arms. "No," I said firmly. "You told the truth, and sometimes truth scares people like him." She nodded, but I could tell she didn't fully believe it yet. Neither did I. The emergency hearing came fast, too fast. Ethan's legal team argued I was unfit, unstable, and seeking revenge. They brought in a therapist I had never met. "She exhibits signs of emotional dependency," the woman testified, gesturing toward me. "Children under that influence can fabricate memories." Fabricate? Lila squeezed my hand under the table. The judge's expression hardened. Then my attorney stood. "Your Honor," she said, "we request permission to submit additional evidence." Ethan stiffened. The judge nodded. "Proceed." The screen lit up again. This time, it wasn't audio. It was text messages. Dates, times, threads. Messages Ethan had sent to his girlfriend, the same woman in the recording. "She's weak. She won't survive court. The kid is leverage." A murmur spread through the courtroom. Then the final message appeared. "Once I win custody, Naomi disappears." The room went deadly quiet. Ethan stood abruptly. "That's private communication." "Sit down," the judge said coldly. My heart pounded because I hadn't known about the messages either. Lila looked up at me, eyes wide. "I sent them to your lawyer," she whispered. "From his tablet. He never logged out." My daughter hadn't just watched, she had learned. The judge closed the folder slowly. "This court does not tolerate manipulation of a minor, especially not for strategic gain." Ethan's confidence shattered. For the first time, he looked afraid. Court adjourned again, but as Ethan was escorted out by his attorney, he turned back toward me. "This isn't over," he said under his breath. I met his stare. For the first time in years, I didn't look away, because control was no longer his, and he knew it. Ethan didn't wait for the next court date. Men like him never do. 2 days after the emergency hearing, I noticed the car parked across the street from my sister's house. Black, tinted windows, engine always running. At first, I told myself I was imagining it. By the third night, it followed us to the grocery store. By the fifth, it was waiting outside Lila's school. "Mom," Lila whispered as we walked to the car, "that's Dad's driver." My stomach dropped. My lawyer confirmed what I already feared. "He's pushing for a psychological evaluation," she said, "for both of you." "For Lila too?" "Yes." My hands clenched. Ethan wasn't trying to win anymore. He was trying to break us. The evaluation center was bright and cheerful, painted in soft colors meant to make children feel safe. But nothing about it felt safe. The evaluator smiled too much, asked Lila questions that sounded innocent but weren't. What does your mom do when she's upset? Has she ever told you secrets about your father? Do you feel responsible for protecting her? Lila answered calmly, truthfully. I watched her grow up in real time. That evening, Ethan called. I can stop all this, he said smoothly. You just have to cooperate. With what? I asked. Primary custody, of course. I laughed once. You're scared, I said. That's new. Silence. Then his voice hardened. You don't get to rewrite the rules now, Naomi. I didn't, I said. You exposed them. I hung up. The breaking point came 3 nights later. We were driving home when red and blue lights flashed behind us. My heart slammed. The officer approached slowly. Ma'am, we received a call about a distressed child in this vehicle. I felt sick. I knew immediately who had made the call. Lila's voice was steady. I'm okay, I promise. The officer looked between us, then stepped back to run our names. After a long pause, he returned. Everything checks out, he said quietly. You're free to go. As he walked away, he added, document everything. I nodded, fighting tears. Ethan had crossed a line. The next morning, my lawyer called early. Naomi, she said, excitement barely contained. We have a witness. A witness to what? To Ethan. She explained that Ethan's former executive assistant, Maya, had reached out. She says she was fired after refusing to lie in a deposition. My breath caught. Maya knew everything. The affairs, the financial games, the custody strategy. She's willing to testify, my lawyer said, under oath. For the first time in weeks, hope didn't feel dangerous. That night, Lila sat beside me on the couch. Mom, she said softly, are we going to be okay? I pulled her close. Yes, I said, finally believing it, because people like him can only hide so long. Outside, the street was quiet. No black car, no watching eyes. For the first time since court began, I slept without fear, because the mask had slipped, and Ethan knew he couldn't put it back on. The courtroom was fuller than it had been at any previous hearing. Word had spread. Ethan Carter, the polished executive, the devoted father, the man who always seemed untouchable, was finally being questioned. He sat straighter than usual, jaw tight, eyes forward. But I noticed it now, the cracks. Across the aisle, my attorney gave me a small nod. Maya had arrived. She didn't look like someone seeking revenge. She looked tired, relieved, like someone who had been holding her breath for years. When she took the stand, Ethan's gaze snapped toward her. For a split second, his confidence vanished. State your name for the record, the judge said. Maya Reynolds, former executive assistant to Ethan Carter. How long did you work for Mr. Carter? My attorney asked. 7 years. 7 years of secrets. Maya folded her hands. I was instructed to schedule meetings labeled as client reviews that were not business-related. I was also told to reroute financial statements and destroy drafts of emails. Ethan's lawyer jumped up. Objection, speculation. Overruled, the judge said calmly. Continue. Maya inhaled slowly. He planned this divorce months in advance. The custody filing wasn't about concern for the child, it was leverage. The courtroom stirred. Maya turned slightly, her voice steady but firm. He said, and I quote, "If I control the child, I control the narrative." My chest tightened. She continued, "He also instructed me to gather personal details about Naomi's daily routines to make her appear unstable if needed." Ethan stood abruptly. "This is a personal attack," he snapped. The judge didn't look at him. "Sit down, Mr. Carter." My attorney presented emails, time-stamped, archived, messages Ethan thought were gone. The judge studied them carefully. These communications suggest intentional manipulation, including coercive custody tactics. Ethan's face flushed red. For the first time, people weren't looking at me with suspicion. They were looking at him. Then came the moment I hadn't expected. The judge turned to Ethan. "Mr. Carter, do you deny instructing others to fabricate concerns about your wife's mental health?" Ethan opened his mouth, closed it. He began, then stopped. Silence filled the room, and silence, in that moment, said everything. Court adjourned for deliberation. Outside, cameras waited, not for me, for him. Maya walked past without looking back. Lila squeezed my hand. "Mom," she whispered, "they're finally listening." I smiled through tears. "Yes," I said, "because the truth is louder than power." As we left the courthouse, Ethan didn't follow. He remained behind, alone, and I knew something had shifted permanently. His empire wasn't destroyed yet, but it was cracking, and once cracks appear, collapse is only a matter of time. The ruling didn't come immediately. 3 days passed. 3 days of waiting, of checking my phone every few minutes, of jumping at every unfamiliar sound outside my sister's house. Ethan stayed quiet. That silence scared me more than his threats ever had. When the call finally came, my lawyer's voice was calm, but careful. "Naomi, the court has issued a temporary order." I held my breath. "Joint legal custody," she said, "but primary physical custody goes to you." My knees nearly gave out. Lila was beside me doing homework. She looked up the moment she saw my face change. "We're staying together," I said softly. She smiled, but it wasn't relief. It was something heavier. Ethan didn't accept the ruling. Of course he didn't. 2 days later, he requested a private in-chambers meeting with the judge. His argument? That Lila was, quote, emotionally conflicted and needed to express her own preference. I hated that part of the law, but I understood it. The day of the meeting, Lila wore her blue sweater, the one she wore when she was nervous. The judge spoke gently to her. "No one is in trouble," he said. "I just want to hear from you." Lila nodded, her hands folded tightly in her lap. "I love my dad," she began. My heart cracked. "But," she continued, her voice steady, "I don't feel safe when he's angry." The judge didn't interrupt. "When he gets angry, he doesn't yell. He plans." The words hung in the air. "I feel safer with my mom," she finished, "because she listens, even when it's hard." I pressed my lips together, fighting tears. Outside the chamber, Ethan waited. He stood as Lila passed. "You did good," he said quietly. "But remember, you'll always need me." She stopped, turned to him. "No," she said calmly. "I needed you. You chose control instead." It was the first time I'd ever heard her speak to him like that, and he had no response. That evening, we went back to my sister's house. Lila sat beside me, unusually quiet. "Did I do the right thing?" she asked. I took her hand. I said, "You told the truth. That's always the right thing." She nodded slowly. Outside, rain began to fall. Soft, steady, like something being washed away. The final ruling was scheduled. Ethan still had moves left, I could feel it. But for the first time, the most important voice in the room had been heard, and it wasn't his. The closer we got to the final ruling, the more desperate Ethan became. He stopped pretending to be calm. Late one night, my phone buzzed with a message from an unknown number. "You can still fix this." I stared at the screen. Then another message appeared. Drop the witness, withdraw the recordings, I'll walk away. I didn't respond. Minutes later, a third message came through. If I lose, you lose more. I forwarded everything to my lawyer. She called immediately. He's panicking, she said, and panic makes people careless. 2 days before the final hearing, Ethan made his move. He filed a civil complaint against me. Defamation, parental alienation, emotional harm. The claims were exaggerated, messy, and full of contradictions. It wasn't meant to win. It was meant to overwhelm. Then something unexpected happened. The school counselor requested a meeting. Lila sat between us, calm but alert. "I need to document something," the counselor said gently. Lila disclosed that her father asked her to lie. My heart froze. "When?" I asked. "Yesterday," she replied. "He told her the court would be easier if she said she missed him more." That was it. Ethan hadn't just crossed a line, he'd erased it. The counselor filed a mandatory report. Child services became involved, not against me, but against him. Ethan's attorney withdrew the next morning. Conflict of interest, the email read. But I knew the truth. No one wanted to stand beside a sinking ship. The final hearing arrived. Ethan looked different. No tailored suit, no confident smile, just a man realizing his influence had limits. The judge reviewed the new report carefully, then looked up. "Mr. Carter," he said, "you were warned about contacting your child regarding testimony." Ethan didn't deny it. He couldn't. This court views that as coercion, and it weighs heavily against you. Silence. Heavy. Final. As we left the courtroom, Ethan stopped me. "This isn't how it was supposed to go," he said quietly. I met his eyes. "No," I replied, "it's how it should have gone." Lila waited by the door. She didn't look back at him. She didn't have to, because his last move had been the one that ended everything. The courtroom was silent when the judge returned. Not the tense silence from before, but the kind that felt final. I held Lila's hand. She squeezed back, once, steady, brave. Ethan stood alone now. No legal team beside him, no quiet reassurance whispered in his ear, just consequences. The judge cleared his throat. After reviewing all evidence, testimony, and reports submitted to this court, he began. Ethan straightened, as if posture alone could save him. This court finds a clear pattern of manipulation, coercion, and misuse of authority. My breath caught. Primary physical and legal custody of Lila Carter is awarded to Naomi Carter. The words echoed in my ears. I didn't move. I didn't breathe. Then the judge continued. Mr. Carter is granted supervised visitation only, pending completion of court-ordered counseling. A sound escaped Ethan's throat, half disbelief, half anger. The judge raised a hand. This decision is final. Lila leaned into me. We didn't cry. We just sat there, letting the weight of it settle. Across the room, Ethan stared straight ahead. He looked smaller now. Ordinary. Outside, the air felt different, lighter, as if something heavy had finally lifted. My lawyer smiled. "It's over," she said. But I knew better. It wasn't the end. It was the beginning of something new. Ethan tried once more. A week later, an envelope arrived. An apology. Typed, formal, empty. I read it once, then filed it away. Some words arrived too late to matter. That night, Lila helped me pack boxes. We weren't returning to the old house. We were starting somewhere else. "Mom?" she asked as we taped the last box shut. "Yes?" "Do you think Dad knows he lost?" I thought about it. "He knows," I said. "He just doesn't know how to live without control." She nodded. satisfied. As we drove away from my sister's place, the sun dipped low on the horizon. Warm, golden. Not perfect, but peaceful. And for the first time in years, peace was enough. Winning didn't feel the way I expected. There was no celebration, no dramatic release, just a quiet exhaustion that settled into my bones. Lila and I moved into a small apartment on the east side of town. 2 bedrooms, thin walls, a balcony that overlooked a parking lot instead of a backyard. But it was ours. The first night there, Lila slept with her door open. That told me everything. Ethan faded quickly. Supervised visits happened twice a month at a family center. Neutral rooms, toys lined neatly on shelves. He tried to be charming, tried to explain. Lila listened politely, then she counted the minutes until it was over. I never spoke badly about him. I didn't have to. His choices did that for me. I went back to work, not where I'd been before, but somewhere new. A small marketing firm that valued experience over explanations. My first paycheck felt surreal. It wasn't about the money. It was proof that I still existed. Some nights, Lila had nightmares. I'd sit on the edge of her bed, rubbing her back until her breathing slowed. "Are we safe?" she asked once, half asleep. "Yes," I whispered, "we are." And for the first time, the answer felt true. One afternoon, months later, I received a call from Maya. "They're investigating him," she said. "Financial misconduct, misuse of company funds." I closed my eyes. Not relieved, not surprised. "Thank you for telling me," I said. After we hung up, I watched Lila doing homework at the kitchen table. I realized something then. Justice isn't loud. It doesn't always arrive with applause. Sometimes it arrives quietly, after the damage is already done. Lila joined a debate club. She learned how to speak clearly, confidently. The first time I heard her argue a point without fear, I had to step outside. She wasn't just surviving, she was becoming. That night she asked, "Mom, if this hadn't happened, would we be here?" I thought carefully. "No," I said. "But that doesn't mean it was meant to happen. It just means we chose what came after." She smiled, and in that smile I saw something new. Not strength, peace. The past still existed, but it no longer owned us. And that was the real victory. A year passed. Not all at once, but slowly, the way healing always does. Lila grew taller, braver. She stopped flinching at raised voices. She laughed louder, slept deeper. Our apartment changed too. Photos on the walls, plants on the balcony, music playing while dinner cooked. Life returned in small, ordinary ways. And that's how I knew we were truly free. Ethan became a name we mentioned less and less. The court eventually reduced his visits further after he missed multiple sessions of counseling. I didn't feel satisfaction, just clarity. Control had been his language. Without it, he had nothing left to say. One evening, Lila came home excited. "Mom, I'm writing a speech," she said, "about courage." I smiled. "What kind?" "The quiet kind," she replied. "The kind people don't notice until it's gone." I understood exactly what she meant. On the anniversary of the ruling, we went for a walk by the river. The sun was setting, the water reflected gold and orange. "Do you ever miss the old house?" Lila asked. I thought for a moment. "No," I said. "I miss who I thought I had to be there." She nodded. That answer was enough. Later that night, I found the old phone in a drawer. The cracked screen, the device that changed everything. I held it for a long moment, then powered it off. Some evidence doesn't need to be carried forever. Before bed, Lila hugged me tightly. "Thank you," she whispered. "For what?" for believing me." My throat tightened. "Always," I said. Lying in the dark, I realized something important. He took years from me. He tried to take my voice. He tried to take my child. But he failed, because what he never understood was this: power doesn't come from control. It comes from truth. And truth has a way of surviving everything. And that's the life he couldn't take.